Sol.
Hello, Jimmy.
Welcome to this Energy Talk. I'm really happy that you're here because we're going to have a talk about activism and about the psychology about social movements and finding solutions for global issues and your involvement in this. So, welcome again, and tell me first who you are, where you're from.
Yes, so thank you again for this invitation. I think it's a very important, interesting opportunity to share about some questions that I don't talk about so often. In terms of how I see, how I approach activism and political struggles and political work in general. So I'm originally from Valencia, in the Mediterranean coast of Spain, and I moved to the Netherlands almost 14 years ago now, which is already a while. And yeah, I came to the Netherlands because at the time, in 2010, the economic situation in Spain was very bad. It was right after the financial crisis of 2008. So for many young Spaniards like me, I was 27 at the time, it was almost a necessity to move abroad to build a career. So that's how I end up here in the Netherlands.
And did you end up in The Hague? Was that the first city that you...
No, it was actually Rotterdam.
Oh,
so I found an internship in Rotterdam, and I got a small grant to obtain work experience abroad. So I moved to Rotterdam to do an internship in a foundation working on sustainability and social entrepreneurship.
Oh, right. Yes. And how did you end up in The Hague? Because we met each other during Capoeira.
Indeed, yes. So when the internship finished, I was looking for a job, and I found a job in The Hague. So that's how I moved to The Hague after Rotterdam.
All right. And so now I know that you're based in Amsterdam and that you're working for the Transnational Institute.
Yes.
So tell me, how did you end up there?
So when I found the job in The Hague, that job was not completely in line with what I really wanted to do. It was actually a subsidiary of the state-owned oil company of Venezuela, which had an office here in The Hague. It was a very interesting job experience, but it was not really what I wanted to do in work, because I as economist by training, I was interested on working on issues that had a connection on basically making the world a better place. Actually, no, most of my friends at the university studying economics, they would work on banking or insurance or accounting, but that was not something I was really interested about. So I had the dream to work on aid, international cooperation, no, so doing projects in Latin America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, just to provide help, no, for communities. But yeah, I tried to do that, to find a job in that sector, but it's very difficult. So while I was struggling to find that kind of direction, there was a big political development globally, which led me to be politically organized in a different way. What I mean is the Arab Spring. So the beginning of 2011, there were revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt that ended up the brutal dictatorships in those countries. And that was extremely inspiring for the whole of North Africa and the Middle East, but also for Spanish people who were also really fed up on the current political situation in Spain in terms of corruption and how the political system was dysfunctional to respond to the economic crisis. So many Spanish activists organized a big demonstration, the 15th of May of 2011, which led up to the emergence of a new movement, the 15M movement from 15th of May, or also called sometimes the Indignados, which means the outraged. And a big feature of this movement was the occupation of the public squares all over the country, following the learnings of the Egyptian movements in Tahrir Square. So that was really a historical development in my country, and many Spanish people here, we were very interested in what was happening and tried to support that, because we felt we really needed a change in Spain at least, but broadly at the global level after the financial crisis, and how a number of very unjust policies were being imposed. Basically, the privatization of public services or the cutoff of public expenditure in order to save the banks and the financial sector, which were presented as too big to fail. So there was this moment of outrage for many of us, and by trying to support the movement in Spain, I started to be in touch with activists from the Netherlands, also many Greek activists, which also were trying to support the Greek movement that started in the squares. And then soon, in a few months later, activists in the United States copied again this tactic of occupying the public space, and they occupy Wall Street, right? In Zuccotti Park in Wall Street. And that then 1 month later, together with many of us advocating for further mobilization and action, there was a global day of action in October that led to 1,000 occupations all over the world of public squares. And I was just involved on that effort to try to mobilize and organize as many mobilizations as possible and support all occupations. And this is how I end up going to a meeting in a conference in Brussels, a weekend conference in Brussels, which was trying to put together many activists and social movements and some trade unions and NGOs, civil society organizations, trying to coordinate our work in Europe to resist the policies of privatization, destruction of social and labor rights. And there I met the Transnational Institute. The director was there and some of the staff, and I was deeply impressed because I found very important to find connections between social movements and the academia. I have been in touch with some teachers at the university, professors at the University of Amsterdam. The Transnational Institute is a global network of scholar activists and works with social movements, academic scholars, and policymakers. So I found that space extremely important for the movements and for social change in general. So I was very, very impressed by the work. And long story short, I joined an e-list. There was a possibility to give your email in this conference in Brussels, and a few weeks later they shared there was a job opening at the Transnational Institute. So I applied together with many others, and at the end I was selected as the person to start working there.
That's fantastic, because you actually went to the conference as an activist, right? What you did in your free time. And then you met this organization, and now you've been working there for more than 10 years.
Yes, 11 now.
11 now. Yeah.
Yes, no, it's I feel very fortunate. I think it's a huge privilege to be working in that work that really has a commitment to support social transformations to build a more just, peaceful, and sustainable planet.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah, what I'm interested in as well is, like, how did you started being like politically active in your life? Yes.
I think, well, in my family there has been always an interest on politics in general, so that's something it would be discussed about and family gatherings and so on. But I think one thing that really made a spark on me was in high school. There was only 1 year where we had mandatory philosophy education, and we had a wonderful teacher. Her name was Enriqueta, and she said, well, in 1 year philosophy it's really too short, so we are going to focus on the illustration period in Europe, and we are going to study three authors, Kant, Rousseau, and Marx. And yeah, I found very interesting what Marx had to say about we are all one as a human species and how we have to try to work together. I was very impressed with Rousseau and this idea of organizing ourselves based on a social contract between those who are selected as representatives of the people and how to deal with that contract. But then Marx and its work with Engels in the Communist Manifesto was for me really, really important. It blew up my mind, honestly, as a 16-year-old, because it gave me some tools to understand history, but also the present reality, no? And how there were some structures in our economic system that perpetuate inequality, and what are the political consequences of that. So that interest really started to grow me, and I just started reading more about economics and politics in general and history. And I think what really marked my political formation was the response by the United States government to the 9/11. I was just 18 years old when that happened, and the Bush administration started the so-called War on Terror, which meant first the invasion of Afghanistan and then the invasion of Iraq, which was not only morally wrong, but it was illegal in terms of the internal structures that were in place, the United Nations system, the Security Council, and others. For me, it was very, very telling that the biggest power in the world was just using its position of power to do whatever they wanted, with a clear goal of benefiting from it economically, right? Access to the oil and gas of the Middle East. So for me, that was very, very important, and for many of my generation, I think also. So through that, I got, I started to go to demonstrations, I started to meet some political organizations, and to be more, to understand how important it is to be politically organized if you want to change the current state of affairs in the world.
Yeah, so if I understand it correctly, like during your upbringing, you were exposed to all these political discussions in your family. Then during high school, you met this fantastic philosophy teacher, and that actually made it more clear to you, like how the structures work in the world. And then finally, that moment happened in what did you say?
In the 9/11.
Yeah,
the terrorist attacks.
Yeah, the terrorist attacks, and that all combined, like politically formed you as a person, right?
Yeah.
And then from there on, you went, you were participating in a very active way as an activist.
Yeah.
Moving from Spain to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention also one element, because I was never considering myself as an activist with that word until I came to the Netherlands. I was just politically conscious. And an important formation also that happened to me in university was that for most people who have political interest, usually they join student organizations, and they are very important in many countries. In my case, I joined a small communist party, which was a revolutionary party. So they have a very strong commitment to revolution, meaning the overthrow of the capitalist system, which for me made sense at the time in order to fight against inequality, but also against imperialism in general, which was very present with the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. And that was an important formation for me because it was a very orthodox party, meaning they have a very strict vision of what Marxism meant, and they follow also the teachings of Lenin and Mao. And for me, it was extremely interesting to be exposed to those ideas from a political perspective at the international level, but also at the organizational level. No? So how do you organize a political force that has a truly revolutionary character? So it was very interesting for me, but at the same time, I also felt disconnected after a while because there were strong limitations. It was a very hierarchical organization, so very top down. There was a clear leadership. There was only one way to do things. So after a couple of years, I felt less interested on that way of doing politics. And I think that's why made me so inspired when this new movement started years later in Spain and in the Arab region and the United States, because it was a completely new movement from a completely new reality. So we had to make everything from scratch, really. No, so it was a very big attempt on direct democracy, on consensus seeking. So all decisions have to be made by consensus. We will have very long meetings to decide everything. Instead of, okay, there's one way to do things, the leadership has decided to do this, so we follow.
So you had more meetings to talk to each other about what to decide and where to move to.
Yes, everything was possible. And also, I think, of course, it was something I learned also through those years. No, we thought we were inventing everything in a way. Like, okay, we just have these massive assemblies on the street and we discuss and then we decide what to do next and what to support or what not. But of course, there's a very long story of these kind of initiatives in many movements. I mean, the feminist movement for voting rights or others, or reproductive rights, or the labor movement, anti-imperialist movement, anti-colonial movement. Many practices have happened in the past, no?
Yeah,
but
they already existed.
There's a lot of learning from that. And I just wanted to mention an important element, which was that we were really the first generation who were fully capable of use the new communication technologies. So there were the years where Facebook and Twitter really allowed to a form of mass organization that was not possible before, especially at a speed that was unprecedented. No, ideas were flowing freely at light speed, right? So that really meant, from in a matter in 2011, we passed from a very relevant revolution in Tunisia to 1,000 occupations all over the world with basically the same demands in a matter of months. That's very significant because there were no major political parties or trade unions or other organizations behind the movement. It was a truly grassroots, bottom-up movement.
Yeah, movement who brought like civilians together, who had the same mindset, who wanted the same for the world, and
who realized the world was the structures that were in place were not good enough to solve the questions we had to solve in terms of who had to pay for the financial crisis and others that were becoming more and more apparent in terms of the massive racism against people, especially from Muslim countries or Muslim background, or also the climate change. All these issues were very pressing, and many felt the way they were being treated by the existing structures of power were completely inefficient and unjust. So we had this sense of we need to do something.
Yeah, well, this change with the communication technology at hand must have been very empowering, right?
Extremely,
to see the groups grow and all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you are working at the Transnational Institute, and you're doing it in a different way. So, what's the difference for you in this?
The difference, I think, is more about the privilege we have to have time and resources to support this kind of social movements in the best way we can, which always goes with working with the movements and being part of the movements. There is a development in the world that needs attention and action, and there are many. We have some experience in how to deal with a situation, and we try to pull together different groups or mobilize certain constituencies so we can address those problems better.
Yes.
So we are a lot about creating spaces of exchange.
Mm-hmm.
This is what TNI does best, to create safe spaces where social movements, policymakers, academics can work together and advance their goals.
Yes, yeah. And like you told me earlier, that you have coordinated a project which is called Transformative Cities.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the examples of something that you could highlight on, right? Like what does it entail, and what did you, as the Transnational Institute, do or did to get this project moving and get people moving all over the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This project started out of our interest on a number of important developments that were happening. That's already back in 2015, 16, where a number of movements, especially in Spain, was a particular relevant case. Many of these movements I was talking about, these mass mobilization movements, there are always limits to that, no? That there's different theoretical approaches to social movements. There are many books and PhDs written about it. I follow what Manuel Castells said at some point, which is a sociologist, who said all social movements are going to die at some point, which is a big thing to say. But his point was, I was outraged when I heard him for the first time, but his point was, well, if social movements, a mass mobilization is successful and achieves its goals, the reason of existence of the movement disappears because you have reached your goal. Other thing that happens often is that a social movement tries to reach a goal, and then there's a massive repression by the state. It can be all forms of repression, so more soft with water cannons to just killing leaders, as happens in many countries around the world. So then a movement can effectively be suppressed and disappear. The last one is that often we can also see that social movements, they get organized at the political institutional level. So many social movements leaders often end up becoming leaders of trade unions or leader of political parties. So that means that there is a process of institutionalization. It's a bad word, but yeah. So these movements become part of the institutions. And that happened in Spain when many social movements, which organized massive mobilizations. The biggest one was one mobilization that gathered 1.5 million people in Madrid. And their answer from the state was police repression. So for many activists, there became the realization that we have taken the squares, we have taken the streets, now we have to take the institutions. So many activists decided to run for local elections. And why local elections? Because at the local level, institutions are forced to listen to people way more than at the national level, or let alone at the regional level, at the European Parliament or others. So yeah, they ran for elections and they were extremely successful. And that meant something. For many of us looking at political transformation, that meant that something was happening at the local level in a way that deserved attention and work. So
this experience was the foundation of Transformative Cities.
It really triggered our interest to look into local politics. So often at TNI, what we do is we work together with social movements, as I said, or sometimes closer to policymakers or to scholars, and to do research, to study what's happening and try to advance the issue. But this time we we decided to organize something different, which was to organize an award to try to understand what was truly transformative. No, usually when we are asked, "Oh, so what's transformative? Why transformative cities?" and the honest question is, we don't know. We have been we do this project to try to unpack what's truly transformative, no? And a way to look at this, no?
But if you connect it to the possibility to win an award, you also play with psychology behind it, right? To mobilize people to share their ideas and start going, actually.
Yes, exactly. So we make this decision of making an award as a strategy to bring more attention and engagement to these issues, because it's a strategy from a communications perspective, no? So people outside these movements or outside these debates about what's the best political strategy to change reality, with an award you will attract public that otherwise wouldn't be so attracted to read about this, but giving the possibility for them to decide, that made a difference. So there was a communication column of this project to engage more people, but also a research perspective, no? So we were trying to understand, by organizing this project, what was more transformative. Because in organizations like TNI or many of the organizations we work with, usually there is the sense that we are pretty good at telling what's wrong about the system, right? But it's much harder to advance the solutions, no? And also we had to tackle a dogma that was present especially in economic discourse, which is called the TINA.
What's the TINA?
TINA means there is no alternative.
Oof.
So this is what Margaret Thatcher advocated when she was Prime Minister of the UK, which relates with this idea of known as neoliberal economics. This idea of how the markets, with as few regulation as possible, and by corporate approach to address social needs, is the best way to solve problems, no? So that meant privatization of public services, of social rights, etc., etc. And the dogma was there is no alternative. So our approach to that was, it's not only not true that there are no alternatives to these market-driven approaches or only corporate-driven approaches to things, but the issue often is that there are so many alternatives that we don't know where to look at. It's like looking at the sky at night. So you see the sky, it's completely full of stars, and these stars might represent a little article you read in the newspaper, for instance. So like, oh, there is this small cooperative run by women in Senegal who are providing biological food for the community using solar panels. And that's like, oh, that's great. No, so this is community owned, led by women, biological food, renewable energy. It checks all the dots, right? But how do you know this is fully transformative at the global level? So there are all kinds of approaches to try to give labels to these kind of initiatives, no? And so this sky full of stars, you can kind of draw different constellations that help you to understand. So in many of the spaces we work with, there are a number of debates who label these initiatives, these alternatives to the kind of purely corporate-driven capitalist system, constellations like the commons, or social and solidarity economy, or feminist economies, or buen vivir, which is used a lot in Latin America, or the right to the city. So there are all kinds of attempts to yeah, to classify these alternatives to the market-driven solutions, but it was very hard to know which ones are truly transformative. So what our approach when looking at this sky of alternatives is let's pick two elements to it. One is let's look at what happens at cities, and let's look at how these initiatives are effectively ensuring access to basic human rights like water, energy, housing, and food. And with this approach is how we try to bring some understanding on how another world is not only possible but is already happening.
Yeah, so you're providing the context, right? In which all these small projects could be described.
Yeah, we were suggesting a frame to understand how these practices were being successful and why they were transformative.
And it was also to bring it to light, right?
Yes, because many of these initiatives are first of all are very local, right?
Yes. And tiny, and maybe they don't have the communication. To
capacity especially to talk at the global level.
Yes.
Yeah. So with this award, we provide them with that possibility.
Thought about creating a frame, a context for transformative cities, and how to bring all these projects to light. I was thinking of the question, like, what are your daily challenges in your work that you come across, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. For the kind of work we do, I believe one of the main challenges is how to deal with the amount of information we receive, right? Because as a research and advocacy institute that is highly connected with many communities around the world, we are constantly receiving a lot of information about what's happening in the ground. At the same time, we of course follow the news and what's going on, right? So that's an important challenge, I think, how to create
a focus, or how to digest the information.
A process to digest all that.
Yeah.
So that's one challenge, and I think there are many approaches to that from a more kind of, if you like, theory, management perspective, or how to deal with different inputs that you are receiving.
Yes.
And that's only not from our kind of work. I mean, organizations like media organizations have to deal with that, or a certain level of corporations also have to deal with that. So there is a level of this. The one challenge that many activists face is burnout. This is a very common issue among activists, and I think relates with the fact that this word activist, when you become an activist, there are different ways to approach this, but I would like to define it as a person that is not only politically conscious, but also is politically organized. And once you become politically organized, you realize how much power do you have. It's really a brain changer, I think. And I have seen it in many people who, for the first time, attend a political gathering where decisions are taken collectively in order to achieve our shared goals. And once you have been in such a process, you realize how much you can do, because there are so many things that could be done better in the world, so many, that once you get organized and you put your capacity together with others, very quickly you can see changes in your reality and around you. However, there is another side of the story, because even though there is this capacity of transformation, the vast majority of the population is not politically organized. They are politically conscious, they might follow the news, they might have an opinion about subjects, They might care about things. They might even donate to certain organizations
Yes.
money.
Yeah. So what do you think the reason is behind that?
Well, there are several reasons if I think about it. So first of all is that there is no knowledge about what means to be politically organized and the importance of it. I mean, there are many realities around the world, but let's focus on Europe, right? Where we have more or less established democratic systems, etc. And most people vote, and for most people, this is what politics means, unfortunately. No? So to take political action means every 2 or 3 years, 4 years, we are asked to vote. In the Netherlands, there are like three moments, no, or 4. And you have the local elections, the national elections, provincial elections, sometimes combined, and the European elections.
Yeah. So when you vote, then that's your part in being politically active.
Exactly. And of course, it's a completely narrow view of political engagement, and there are many other ways you can be politically active, no? And this doesn't mean you have to become an activist necessarily, no? For instance, I believe if you work on the care sector,
yes,
or if you work in a public school, I think in many ways you are an activist already, because you are putting your belief in providing a service for the common good, and that's extremely important.
So that is your definition of being an activist, providing service for the common good.
Yes, and being organized to do that. So, of course, individually we can do a lot, but there is a limit what you can achieve alone. When you are organized, it expands. It's exponential, the amount of impact you can have. So coming back a bit on this idea of the typical activist who organizes demonstrations or actions or civil disobedience, etc. No? Often what happens is that once you have a taste of what action you can do, the tendency is to just be active and just try to do more, right? And often once you raise your voice a little bit, then people will approach you with demands, with questions, with suggestions, what to do next, no?
That's right.
And this means often that if you are not careful, soon all your life moves around these kinds of issues, like what's the next demonstration we have to work to prepare, what's the next issue we have to fight for, because there are always, and there will be always, struggles. I like a sentence that says activism is not a sprint but a marathon, and you have to take it that way, because many activists are just on a constant sprint because there are so many injustices in the world on a daily basis. And when you have this feeling that you can actually contribute, many have this tendency to just go to everything. And that's often...
And to say yes to everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because what you said earlier, when you start to experience that positive effects come from being active in what you believe in, then doors will open.
Yeah.
Then opportunities will arise. People will ask you, to come and talk, for example.
Exactly. This is a perfect example, yes.
Yes, and then you have to think about it. Like, do you say yes or do you say no? Because you, at the end of the day, you invest time and energy into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to know your boundaries to stay balanced.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when...
So that's a challenge.
That's a big challenge, yeah.
Yeah, because before going into this talk, you told me that you were part of the climate march in Amsterdam yesterday.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
With your family.
Yes. So it's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
You must just...
So it's family time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And of course, if you are working the rest of the week, going to school, I mean, it's a demonstration. I think it's a very important moment, because you get inspired, you see you're part of a collective, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. But it's true that it can be tiring. Okay? It's outside, it might be cold, it might be raining, it's noisy, you know. I mean, especially for kids, it can be, yeah, I'd rather stay home and play, you know. And the same for adults. Many people say, well, I'd rather go to see my friends and have a nice meal and a beer, you know. So it's a choice to spend your time in this way.
And you have made these choices over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah, over and over again. So what brings you to it? Like, how can you describe it?
Yeah, I think there are two sides of it. One thing is that I still get very angry when I see injustice. It's something really burns me inside. So I need to do something about it. And of course, there are many injustices in the world. I don't know how to deal with them, as most people, right? But there are some where I think, well, I could contribute to a better outcome. And that happens, for instance, in my work at the Transnational Institute, because we are in a position of, with this institute with 50 years of existence. Next year we have our 50th anniversary. So we have a lot of experience on how to connect dots, how to connect groups, and how to provide spaces for discussion, etc. So for me, anger, it's a moment, it's a trigger, definitely, right? But it's also the joy of working with people and just being able to work in something that you truly believe in and that you're interested about. And that can take different forms for different people.
That's right, but I think I can relate to you saying that anger triggered you and keeps you moving into this direction, you know, like wanting to be a part of a collective of people who are like-minded, who are striving for the best, for the common good. And it starts with feeling that a lot of things in the world are unjust and that you feel angry and sad about it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's how we make choices on a daily basis. Like, how do we want to spend our energy? In what cause? What do I believe in? And I think that's a really good thing, and also something to be proud of. But as you said, it can be exhausting at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Only with anger you cannot organize a movement or a mobilization.
No, that's right. Yeah.
No, it has to be fun, and you have to bring joy to what to do. I mean, many activists I know, I'm extremely privileged to work with from different countries in the world. We just have very good time also together. We laugh a lot, we connect with each other in different ways. We have the possibility, we dance, I remember one of the
I'm so happy that you are sharing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super important. I remember, look, when I was talking about, I was organizing different activities during the movements after the financial crisis, right? So there was this moment where Occupy Wall Street was happening. There was a call to action for October. And what I decided was, with others, we should go to Brussels because it's where European governments decide. So we organized to go by bus to Brussels from the Netherlands to join a big demo there. Other friends, they went by bicycle from Amsterdam to Brussels, doing a tour. It was so nice, but I couldn't join it because I had a full-time job at the moment. But well, I helped to organize a bus to go there. And it was amazing. We went to Brussels. We were 1,000 people in Brussels from all over Europe. we had an amazing assembly in one big park in Brussels, people from all over Europe, and we were connecting online with other occupations around the world. It was amazing because now, like, live streaming is something you have 100 apps in your phone, but at that time we were the only ones doing live streaming. No one else. There wasn't. It was a completely new technology. There was no such a thing as live streaming. So that was amazing. And then after that, we had some people had music there, and we just started dancing. And I met a guy, and he told me something I have heard many times this afternoon, which is, if I cannot dance, it's not my revolution. And I totally embrace that. Totally. And
if I cannot dance, then it's not a revolution.
It's not my revolution.
Then it's not my revolution.
If it's a revolution where I cannot dance and there is no dance,
yes,
I will not join.
No, if there's only fighting and
exactly.
Yeah, pain. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Indeed. Okay, so I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because up until now, we've spoken a lot about the injustice and that it steers you to be part of social movements and and how to work together with them, and that's mostly based on knowing and feeling that something is unjust, and that a lot of energy goes to those parts, and mostly we can describe it as kind of negative energy, right? Like, okay, it's draining and it's so painful and it's so hurtful how people act in a way. And there's also this other side of being together and sharing the same values and laughing and dancing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons many of us who got organized in these 2011 mobilizations, which I call 2011 generation, similar to what 1968 generation meant for many people, no? With all the mobilizations around the world that year. I think many of us felt very alone, because already at that time, many of us got access to information that just made you understand something was fundamentally wrong with what was happening in the world. And most people just deal with that individually. There are no enough spaces to digest all that, because we know what's happening, or we know we are one click away to know what's happening, right? And it's normal to and it's healthy to put yourself some boundaries on what you want to know or what kind of issues you want to follow, because you cannot follow everything and you cannot deal with all the injustice in the world, no? But you can also pick a number of issues you are interested about and try to know more and be active around that.
So that is actually also your message, right?
Yes.
To everyone listening or watching our Energy Talk.
Yes, that you are not alone when you feel there is something that has to change. You are never alone. There are many who feel the same way. Probably there are already some people already acting about that. And probably there are people in your own city who are acting about that, or at least gathering to discuss about it. And I think it totally makes sense to try to put some time aside to channel that anger or that frustration or that sadness. Because of course everybody is very busy. We have all busy lives with family and work. But if you think about it, you can spend 2 hours a month going to a gathering about a subject that you might make have a difference.
Yes, you can think in small steps.
Yes.
Yeah,
because otherwise one of the tendencies, for instance, is just to be active on social media, which is all good and fine, but you can reach to a certain point. There's nothing like real gathering with people to exchange on ideas, which often leads you to make your ideas more complete and stronger, no?
Mm-hmm.
At the end, when we have the capacity to change with others, is how you learn. It's basically the way to create knowledge, no? To confront your ideas with others and then to reach a new one.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely hope this inspires the viewers and the listeners. Yeah, because you give a lot of helpful insights in how to deal with the anger and frustration that you're feeling.
Yeah, I hope this is useful. Yeah, I think, yeah, I acknowledge it's a heavy bag many of us have.
Yes.
Especially in privileged societies like ours, where we have access to many, with whatever we need, really, mostly. No, in a country like the Netherlands, it's we have access to a lot of entertainment and access to rights, etc. But at the same time, we know a lot of that has been built here in the Netherlands, concretely, but Europe or Western Europe more broadly, is based on centuries of colonialism, centuries of exploitation of other peoples, centuries of slavery. I think people know that very well, even though they don't want to acknowledge. And I think it's painful to acknowledge this. It's very painful. And this is not a call to shame or self-criticism in a way that it will make you even more sad.
Yes.
But it's a call for acknowledging that this has been the past and this is how Europe has been built, partially, and that we have a responsibility to change the course of history and to change what the meaning of living in Europe is.
And it's also a call for action, right? Because what you just said reminds me of what Harriet Bergman said in the video about transformative cities, in which she said that when you strive for a common goal or strive for doing good, then you have to acknowledge that you also have to give up on something.
Yes.
And I think we, as the privileged people living in Western countries, can make a list of all of those privileges and think about, okay, what can I give up? And then eventually have more time to invest in the collective, in the common goals, and that you can start out with like 2 hours a month, and then I think of the story that you told, like, okay, when you start being active, then you start feeling the positive effects of that, and you feel more supported by like-minded people, and then like the willingness of investing more time will be there, like in a more natural way. But it starts by thinking about what do you give up, or what are you willing to give up to strive for the common goal.
Yeah, and it can be just a bit of time. It doesn't need to be more than that. It's not that you have to go out of your house or your car, or some people take those decisions, no? Like those who are vegetarian or vegan, they don't often, those decisions are based on a political approach to that, right? So you have those kind of avenues also, but it can be way less.
There are so many entries.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about I think about vegetable gardens, right?
Yes.
Yeah, growing your own vegetables instead of buying at the supermarkets, and there are so many entries for positive change.
Yes.
Yeah, not buying the speculaas.
Yeah, or think about which kind of bank you use.
Yes.
How do you use your free time? How do you travel?
Yes, that's right.
And at the same time, all that is important, and individual choices are part of transformation. What I want to emphasize is the importance of collective action. Only via collective action we will change things. And it's very hard. Let's be clear also. It's very hard to take collective action. Super hard.
Yes.
I find it absolutely necessary, and I'm ready to spend hours on that. But it's also important to acknowledge it's hard. But I think one of the important elements that brings you to try to be organized politically is that when you realize how difficult it is to take collective decisions, how difficult it is to take collective action, then you start to feel less frustrated and angry towards many of the political leaders. Because how often people are just super angry to this political leader or this political party, and for many people, politics is about just blaming this politician. They don't know to do anything. Well, it's very hard. It's super hard to take decisions that will have
a global impact.
A global impact, or a national impact, or a city level impact.
Yes.
It's extremely hard. And I think if we are serious about living in a democratic system, we have to be ready to be part of the democratic system also by engaging in collective decision making.
Yeah, and because of that engagement and involvement and being part of the collective, it's easier, or it makes it easier to understand the political leaders, right? Instead of blaming them,
yes,
shaming them.
Yes, yes, and have a better understanding of how things could be done better.
Yes,
because otherwise you're just waiting for the next leader or the next new party that will try to solve everything, and this is not going to solve the problems. Just a new party or a new leader. It might bring a number of positive elements to it, but it goes well beyond that. It will be always about the capacity of the population to be active and organized, so when injustice happens, we are ready to react.
Yes. Great. Thanks a lot for sharing all of your insights on social movements and activism.
Well, thanks to me for this opportunity. It has been a pleasure to spend time with you and to go deeper on these questions that I found very important. I hope for the listeners as well.
Yes. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.